Greetings. My name is Ron Busby. Welcome to Ron B. Christian Talk on Race, Achieving Racial Equality. This is the 6th video, so please go back and look at the other 5 videos. It will catch you up on some of the things I'll talk about, and it will tie in some of the previous videos. One thing that I always say in the other videos, and it's extremely important, we have to be able to look back in America at our racial history, link it to the present so we can avoid mistakes and put the present in the right context on how to interpret race today, so we can control how we want to have race relationships and equality in the future. If not, we're going to deny things that happened in the past, and we're going to be set to repeat those. So the truth will set you free, because I really believe we have a systemic problem of racism in this country, and I think we have physical enemies and spiritual enemies at the helm that want to continue and perpetuate this racial inequality and systemic racism. Okay? What we're going to talk about today is our judicial system, the founding of it, how things are happening now, and how do we get to this racial disparity in our prison system, mainly because of drug crimes. Okay? We're going to go all the way back to the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. Okay? Emancipation Proclamation. On January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln issued the final Emancipation Proclamation. Okay? Now stick with me on these dates and the trajectory that we're going to be going. It wasn't until June 19th, 1865, that the word, and it became official all across the South, especially Texas. It wasn't fully implemented. Emancipation Proclamation, which was supposedly the ending of slavery, until June 19th, 1865, across the South, mainly Texas. That's why June 19th is called the Juneteenth celebration, for some of those people that may not know that. Now, the 13th Amendment is only 47 words long. The 13th Amendment, by the end of 1865, see the overlap there? By the end of 1865, both houses of Congress passed the 13th Amendment, and it was ratified in December. Okay? Now, let's look at what was going on in the country at that time. First of all, it was a tragic war. It was a bloody war, and it was fought on American soil. So, families were tore up, the North, the South, feuding with each other, families feuding with each other. So we had to heal. After the war, Civil War, we had to heal. We had to heal relationships. We had to heal families. But also, the country was tore up because the war was fought on American soil. So we had to rebuild the country, rebuild the economy. Now, in the South, their economy was mainly built on farming. Cotton was a big industry. Tobacco was a big industry, which is why they used slaves, and they had free labor to produce the product. So you're making profit, you have no labor costs. So that was a great scenario for them. Now that scenario is supposedly gone. Supposedly. Let's look at, and we're going to read the 13th Amendment. Section 1, we're just going to read Section 1. 13th Amendment. Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Okay, so you see it? Now, in the 13th Amendment, which is very interesting, it's the first time in the Constitution that slavery was ever mentioned. Our founding fathers did not mention it in the Constitution. This is the first time it's mentioned. Now look at the sleight of hand here that was intentional. Slavery was abolished, but it existed if you were arrested and convicted of a crime, if you were a criminal. So what did the 13th Amendment do? In essence, the 13th Amendment both banned and justified slavery in one fell swoop. The section allowing slavery to exist for those convicted of a crime was put there on purpose. The system, and you're going to see, the system is not broken. The system is built this way on purpose. Our judicial system is built this way on purpose and is functioning just the way it's supposed to. Okay? How does the design of the system help to ensure the creation of a massive undercast? That's what we're going to get into. In the last video, I talked about the war on drugs. How by the Reagan administration war on drugs started off as a political slogan, but turned into an all-out war funded by the government, federal government, that locked up thousands and thousands of brown and black people, many of them poor, for minor drug crimes. So how did we get there? 13th Amendment, we're going to trace all the way up to the war on drugs to where we're at now and find out what's going on with this injustice, systematic racism in our judicial system. Okay? Okay. First of all, drug arrests are totally different than most any other crimes that are committed. Why is that? If a person is assaulted, if a person is abused, then their civil rights are violated and they're going to contact a police officer because a crime has been committed. Now, the selling, buying, distributing illegal drugs is consensual. So the person on his own goes seek somebody that's selling illegal drugs, and the seller finds them, they connect, they meet up, and an illegal crime takes place. A person sells drug. Both parties, it's consensual. So it's tough to government, police officers, to arrest people for drug crimes. It's totally different. So what's extremely important to understand, illicit drug use, selling and distributing drugs, is extremely popular. All colors of people, black, white, brown. We're going to get into a lot of statistics today to show you all colors, black, white, no matter what color you are involved in selling and distributing illegal drugs. Now, this is so popular, it's impossible for police officers, the penal system, it's impossible to convict, arrest, and even fine all the people that do drugs, illegal drugs. If they could find everybody and arrest them, don't have enough resources, and we don't have enough prisons. It would be millions of people, okay? So that just can't happen. So, and most Americans don't have any idea that people that are convicted hardly ever get a chance to talk to legal representation. Okay? In 2002, there were 19.5 million illicit drug users. Okay? 19.5 million. Only 1.5 million were arrested, and only 175,000 were put in jail or prison. Okay, let's put that in perspective. Okay, out of 100 people, only 8 people were arrested. That's the percentages. So, of the 100 people that get involved in illicit drugs, 92 go free. Only 8 are arrested. Out of those 8 that are arrested, only 1 person goes to prison. Okay? Those are the statistics. Those are the numbers. like I say again, it's impossible to find everybody that gets involved in illicit drugs. It's impossible to arrest everybody, and it's impossible to throw people in jail. Why is that? Don't have enough resources, and we don't have enough prisons. We could not imprison that amount of people. Okay? So, what does the judicial system do? What does the government do? What do police officers do? Very important. They employ strategic and intentional tactics to keep the prisons full of black and brown people and arrest them because of the use of illegal drugs for drug crimes. Okay, and we're going to get into that. In every state across America, the poorest neighborhoods are subject to tactics that would result in public outrage if they were done in middle-class American neighborhoods. And we're really going to get into that today. Okay, first we're going to look at the results of these tactics. Then we're going to really get into these tactics. Okay, the results of these tactics, remember those percentage. Out of 100 people that get involved in illicit drugs, only 8 of them are arrested and only 1 is put in jail. Okay? The prison population throughout the 20th century, basically throughout the 20th century, the prison population basically stayed flat until around the 1970s. And that era is basically called mass incarceration. And we're going to break that down and really get into it. Mass incarceration is a system that caged millions of poor people and people of color and relegated millions more to a permanent second class. Okay? The majority of illicit drug users are white, but 75% of the people in prison for drug offenses are black or Latino. Okay? Think about that in relation to our statistics. Out of the 100 people that get involved in illicit drugs, 8 are arrested, 1 goes to jail. Most of the people in jail for drug use are black or brown people, because you can't arrest everybody. So you have to have intentional and strategic processes in place to decide who you're going to arrest. It's obvious who's been arrested and who's in jail. Okay? We're going to break it down even further. In 2000, there were surveys done by the National Institute on Drug Use, National Household Survey on Drug Use Abuse, and 2,000 Human Watch organizations. Okay? 3 different organizations. Here are the results of those organizations. In 7 states, 80 to 90% of people in prison for drug charges are black. In 15 states, black men are admitted to prison at a rate of 22 to 57 times greater than white men. White students use cocaine 7 times more than black students. White students use crack cocaine 8 times more than black students. White youth aged 12 to 17 sold illegal drugs at a rate 33% more than African American youth of that same age group. White youth had about 3 times the number of drug-related emergency room visits as their African American counterparts. This is data that's available to everybody back in 2000. Police officers, any member of the judicial system, politicians, fits right in. Of the 100 people that get involved in illicit drugs, you can only arrest 8 and you can only imprison 1. With all these statistics, it shows you that white people do more involvement in illicit drugs than black or brown people, but the people getting arrested, being thrown in jail, is an astronomical amount compared to their white counterparts, because there had to be strategic, intentional tactics put in place to decide who you're going to arrest. And we're going to get into those tactics. We're just giving you the results of those tactics right now, okay? The notion that most illegal drug use and sales happen in the ghetto is a pure myth and fiction. It is not true, okay? Now, what are the strategic and intentional tactics that have produced these racial discriminatory results? These tactics and practices exclusively were used in poor communities and have resulted in a tremendous racial inequality of black and brown men in jail every year for drug charges. A lot of them minor drug charges. Okay? Here's the statistics. Grant law enforcement officers extraordinary discretion regarding who to stop, search, arrest, and charge for drug offenses. So, as a police officer, hey, I can pick anybody I want to search or charge for drug use. So, out of the 100, I'm going to pick a certain class of people because I'm going to get 8 arrests and I'm going to get 1 going to jail. Out of all the massive people in the world, in America, I'm just going to pick a few. They were given that discretion based on what they wanted to do on their own. Okay? This is very important. Laws were passed that did not allow any claims by defendants and or persons involved in a lawsuit that the criminal justice system operates in racially discriminatory fashion. Basically, you can't challenge the system. What you had to do, if you say, hey, look, I think the system is racist, I think the numbers show it's racist, we know all the people using drugs, we know it's all racist, but why is it just a certain race of people, black and brown people, in jail? Basically, you had to demand that anybody who wants to challenge the racial bias in the system offer in advance clear proof that the racial disparities are in product of intentional racial discrimination. In other words, the only way you could prove racial bias, forget the statistics, if the person admits it. Hey, I'm a bigot. I'm targeting black people. That's the only way you can prove it. And laws were put in place that that's the only way you could prove that the system was racist. So these are some of the tactics that were put in place in order to discriminate against black and brown people for drug charges. Okay. Another tactic was the media, changing the color of the drug user. Okay. Early in the 1980s, prior to the war on drugs, the typical cocaine-related story focused on the white recreational user who snorted drugs in its powder form, powder cocaine. The media associated drug treatment, rehab, recovery with the white recreational user. What happened? By 1985, a paradigm shift occurred due to the war on drugs. The drug users shifted to poor, non-white, and dealers of crack cocaine. Now police officers became the drug experts and decided that everyone associated with crack cocaine needed to be arrested. Not treatment, not rehab, not recovery anymore. That was the role of the media. Another tactic, intentional tactic that was used. The last intentional tactic, and these are going to be the most important, and we're really going to get into this towards the end, who benefited from this. The last intentional tactic was the implementation of mandatory sentencing for minor drug crimes and 3 strikes you're out drug laws, which leads to plea bargaining. Okay, let's break this down. In 1986, Congress passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which established extremely long mandatory minimum prison terms for low-level drug dealing and possession of crack cocaine. Not powder cocaine, crack cocaine. The typical mandatory sentence for a first-time drug offense in federal court is 5 to 10 years. Across the world, it's 6 months in other countries. Another law that was passed was this three strikes you're outlaw. That's what it was called. You could get a mandatory life sentence for your third drug offense, and it could be a minor offense. Now, what did all this do? Okay, plea bargaining. The people that aren't familiar with the court system may find this as a shock. Almost no one ever goes to trial. Nearly all criminal cases are resolved through plea bargaining. What is plea bargaining? A guilty plea by the defendant in exchange for some form of leniency by the prosecutor. It's not widely known, but the prosecutor is the most powerful law enforcement officer in the criminal justice system. He or she can decide on a case, kick out the case, dismiss the case for no reason at all. Or they can decide what charges, just on their discretion, what charges they can add on to the case. This is called overcharging. So what happens now? Picture this. You get searched, picked up, arrested, and say, okay, now you getting ready to go to court. You're facing 5 to 10 years mandatory minimum sentencing. If it's your second or third crime, drug crime, you're getting close, or you're there at mandatory life in prison. So what you're going to do, you're going to plea bargain. Hey man, give me leniency. What do you need? You need me to snitch on somebody. You need me to do this. Hey, I'll make up a lie, which has been proven. Sometimes people get in a situation, they'll be coerced, give us a name, do this, do this. They'll just make up a lie. Now you've made up a lie on somebody. They're going to go grab that person on suspicion. Hey, now that person is in the situation you're in. I'm not going to go to court. You probably don't have any evidence on me, but I'm not going to go to court. I'm going to plea bargain. I'll accept a lesser charge, which will be on my record. It will count as one offense because I don't want to take a chance of going to court, because court is risky because of these laws that were put in place. Never before in history have so many people admitted and pleaded guilty to crimes they didn't do, simply because the punishment for minor non-violent offenses are so unbelievably severe. Okay? Now, these mandatory sentencing, people were explaining this in the government and politicians. Oh, it's to keep these violent criminals off the street. That's why we have to have these strict, extreme, minimum sentencing guidelines. It's been proven most people that fall into these minimum strict, extremely long minimum sentence requirements are because of minor drug crimes, not violent criminals. Tens or thousands of people go to court every year without a lawyer. You get assigned a lawyer if you can't afford a lawyer. These lawyers have so many cases. The only time you get with them is a few minutes or seconds before you go there in front of a judge. And they may say, plead guilty, plead guilty. They don't have time to look at your case. So you have just a few seconds and a few minutes to make a decision that could affect the rest of your life. People are herded through the court system on minor drug charges, just like herding cattle. The system will take care of the rich and guilty before it takes care of the poor and innocent. The system is not broken. It is working the way it was designed. Okay, here's some quotes from some federal judges during the Reagan administration that were appointed. Here's some of their comments. Judge Lawrence Irving, a Reagan appointee, noted upon his retirement, "If I remain on the bench, I have no choice but to follow the law. I just can't, in good conscience, continue to do this." Another judge, Judge Jack Weinstein, refused to take any more drug-related cases because he felt a sense of depression about how much of the cruelty I have been a party to in connection with the war on drugs. Last one. Another Reagan appointee, Judge Stanley Marshall, told a reporter, "I've always been considered a fairly harsh sentencer, but it's killing me that I'm sentencing so many low-level offenders away for this time." Okay? Now, the crux of this. Who benefits from this enormous underclass of people that we put in prison? Okay. Let's trace the prison population. In 25 years, starting in the 1980s, for the next 25 years, the prison population has increased from 350,000 people to 2.3 million people, most of them on minor drug charges. Okay. Naturally, you would think, oh, there's got to be a lot of arrests. That wasn't the case. The main reason we had this prison boom population growth is due to the changes in the laws and policy, particularly the dramatic increase in the length of prison sentences and not an increase in crime. Mainly, extremely long mandatory prison terms for low-level drug crimes and 3 strikes you're out law increased our prison population from 350,000 to 2.3 million from the late 1980s for the next 25 years. Okay? Now we're going to get into that. How did that happen? 2 organizations I want to tell you about. One is called ALEC. A-L-E-C. Google them, look them up. American Legislative Exchange Council. That's ALEC. Okay? Then you've got CCA. Corrections Corporations of America. Okay. Now, CCA, Corrections Corporation of America, has been rebranded as Core Civic. Like I said, you can Google and look them up. Okay, you're going to have to stick with me on this. ALEC is a private lobbying organization, mainly politicians and corporations. Most of the politicians that are a member of ALEC, this private lobbying organization, are Republican politicians. In their meetings, the members will secretly vote on laws that they want to implement. So if you're a member in that organization, you can say, oh, here's a law I want to implement. Here's a law I want to propose. So you write it down, you have a secret ballot, and people vote on it. The corporations vote on it. Any member of ALEC vote on it. The Republicans or the politicians, most of them Republicans, will vote on it. And if it wins, they propose it as a law. Now, ALEC is very talented. ALEC has members that write laws. They write them so well and they have such a good process that they have a form basically. And so if I'm a politician and it's been voted that I have to propose this law because this private group I'm in agreed to it, all I have to do is sign my name and sign my state. This is so crazy that some of these politicians, when they propose a law on the Senate floor, on the Congress floor, wherever they're at, their local entities, their local place that they're the politician over, they will present it, and sometimes they still have it on the ALEC letterhead. They say, excuse me, that's the ALEC letterhead. It's the same font and everything else. Okay, let me redo that. Okay? So, ALEC has been around since 1973. Right around the war on drugs started. They played a vital part in influencing the laws of this country by being this private club with state legislatures and leaders from the corporate and business community. Okay? Now, let's talk about some of the laws that they have written and proposed and got passed as laws. Anti-abuse law that created extremely long minimum mandatory sentences for minor drug crimes. Author of that law 3 strikes, you're out. We're on your 3rd offense, and it can be a minor drug offense. You can get life in prison. They were the author of that law. They were also the author of the law, Stand Your Ground law in Florida. Now, we're going to come back to that one in a minute because that kind of got them in some hot water and made a lot of corporations leave. But one member of Alex is the CCA, Corrections Corporations of America. What do? They build, manage, and maintain prisons. CCA makes contracts with states and say, hey, I'll take care of all your prisons. I'll build your prisons. I'll maintain your prisons. I'll take care of all your prisons. Alex, when they were writing laws, 3 strikes, you're out law, extreme mandatory, minimum mandatory sentences, mandatory for low-level crimes, drug crimes. Guess who was on Alex's task force to write those laws? CCA. So, if these laws pass, we know we got a bunch of people involved in illegal sale and distribution of drugs. I pass these laws. I can focus on black and brown people. I can focus on the brown community. I'm covered by the law to employ these tactics. I can keep the jails full. Ching, 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 ching. CCA is a billion-dollar business that made money on black and brown people being locked up in prison through Alex, and it's all documented. Google it and look it up. Now, the Stand Your Ground law in Florida, Alex was responsible for that. But here's what happened. When Zimmerman murdered Trayvon Martin, and Zimmerman was able to get off because of Stand Your Ground law, it got a lot of press. The public, us, we started looking at it and say something's wrong. When it started getting exposed that Alex was responsible for writing that law and pushing that law through their organization, a lot of big corporations left Alex because of that, which tells you how much power we have when we dig into the truth, find the truth, and stand up for the truth. The greed that the enemy used from physical and spiritual enemies, we can combat that as the church and as Christians if we stand up. Okay? Now, one thing I want to end with, one statistic. Black men make up 6.5% of the general population, but 40.2% of the prison population. What is wrong with that picture? The only thing that explains that and justifies that is a judicial system that is built on systemic racism, which goes all the way back to the 13th Amendment, is the only way to explain the racial discriminatory results. So that's what I wanted to talk to everybody about today. Let's all be in prayer for the racial situation here in America. It's a spiritual problem and a physical problem. As the church, as Christians, our job description is what God wants it to be. He wants everybody to be fair and equal. And if we stay quiet and do not be the light, the hope that God wants us to be, we're going to have to be accountable to God on Judgment Day. It is our job for equality in this country. That's why we need to vote. We need to change the game. We need to change our judicial system. Now that we know the truth, let's be in prayer and do our part to change the system. God bless you. Please like and subscribe to the channel so we can get our subscribers up. And hey, looking forward to your comments. Thanks again. I hope this message blessed you.